Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to day 2 of the 2013 MLG Spring Championships. We're watching the open bracket for StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm for the first match of day 2. It's Stats versus Deer. Game 2 coming up.
That first game was really the classic battle between the aggressive player and, of course, the more economically focused player. In that situation, Deer came out on top. His defense against that Zealot counterattack was so efficient, so well thought out, and then his ability to just prioritize the micro, being confident his defense was good, was even more amazing. He was microing his probes against the Zealots to avoid losing as many as possible while he was microing his Blink Stalkers on the other side of the map.
These guys are super good, and it's like to make that decision to even make those 3 Zealots across the map, that's a big decision to make when you're, again, time is on your side. The longer you stay alive, the better off you're going to be. And Stats going for that 3 Zealot weapon across the map. Who knows if that's what led to his downfall. But here we are in game number 2. In the bottom right-hand location, I present your Blue Protoss player, currently up 1-0. He has not dropped a map yet in the Spring Championship for StarCraft 2. Heart of the Swarm, he is Deer. Of course, his opponent in the top left-hand location, going for the defensive play in game 1. Let's see if he changes things up here in game 2. He needs to win 2 in a row. He is Stats. Belshir Vestige is the map.
The big question here is will Stats go for that same very fast expansion off the bat? I mean, he tried the first game, the expansion got up fine, but he was unable to defend that Blink Stalker aggression. That's the trademark of Deer. It's a very aggressive build. So will Stats play a little more conservatively this time, or really say, you know what, I think I can hold that build. I think my opening was solid. Just, my first Immortal fell too early. I didn't get that second force field on the ramps. I was able to blink those Stalkers up and pick off my first Immortal before he had 2 out there. And if I control my defense a little better, the build is still very sound. Yeah,
I mean, Stats knows exactly what he's doing. I love your point about how he was looking for that proxy Stargate play. In PvP, a lot of people call it like a rock, paper, scissors matchup or a coin flip matchup, where if you go down a particular tech path, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to another tech path. And Stats kind of eliminating that a little bit as far as opening up with a robo. He realizes what he's weak against. So he's taking every option possible, taking every step possible to make sure he doesn't die to that tech path that he's really vulnerable to. Sending that Mothership Core out to scout potential product Stargate, the probe on the bottom of the map. Really cool play from Stats, but Deer just had too much, just overwhelmed them with Blink Stalkers, and I'm really intrigued to see what kind of tech paths these guys choose in this game too.
Well, Deer's sitting to probe out to scout his opponent, whereas Stats is not scouting quite yet. Now, if you don't scout, it's usually because you have this build that's designed fine against even someone who's chronoing Warp Gate like crazy or something like that. Now, Stats didn't scout too much last game, more scouted for the proxy buildings, because he said, you know what, my opponent's base isn't going to tell me too much anyway, and I want to maximize the resources early on. Whereas Deer is saying, you know what, I can lose 50, 60 minerals by sending his probe out to scout, but as long as I can put my opponent on a range it builds. And the questions you ask yourself when you scout that probe are, how many probes are mining gas? How much chrono boost is spent on probes? How much chrono boost is spent on Warp Gate? Where are the pylons in his base? Is there a third pylon that I don't see that could be proxied somewhere? Where should I send my observer, my hallucination, to look for his tech buildings? Because you want to know where the pylons are so you know where to send your scouts later on in the game.
Both these guys opening up with the 2 gates, and they're both chrono boosting both their gateways. Very identical builds from both these players. It's actually a build I love to do. Generally, you add on when I generally do this, I add on a 3rd gateway, and I'll attack with a bunch of Stalkers early on in the game. But we'll see what these guys do. Of course, trying to take map control for now, and what you have to be really careful about is not to send any units on their own, right? Not to get caught off guard, because if you lose 1 Stalker early in the game of a PvP, it's actually so important. It can really, really set up the game, set up the momentum in either direction. A little skirmish going to happen here. 3 Stalkers versus 1. Stats is going to back away. There's the time warp. Having to expend that is not going to be fun at all.
Yeah, he actually is still probably going to use that Mothership Core. Another time warp goes down. Mothership Core, of course, is lower than Stalkers.
He's going to get it. He might get the Stalker too. Oh, he gets the Stalker. Deer is playing this so well, taking out a Mothership Core and a Stalker. He might get another Stalker too.
He even saved his own Stalker.
Oh my god.
He hasn't lost a single unit yet. So cost efficient there. He lost a scouting probe, but nothing significantly. And now he's got total map control. He can expand behind us. He's got sentries back at home to help defend in case there's some aggression. And this is the perfect spot for Protoss to be, where you can expand yourself, and you can make sure it's more difficult for your opponent to expand. Make sure your opponent is afraid to build probes. When you see that Deer knows he's safe to build probes, safe to tech up, doesn't have to warp in more stalkers, can spend those resources on teching. Stats, on the other hand, he's the one doing the aggressive build. The 3 gates, the blink stalkers, but he's the one stuck in his base.
Oh man, not a good start here for Stats. Again, the early game of PvP is so technical. Every unit is incredibly important, not only for map control, but again, momentum as the game goes along. And Deer with a picture-perfect opening, sniping his opponent's Mother's Core, sniping his opponent's, one of his opponent's Stalker. Resources lost is 375 to 50. People might be like, well, that's not a big difference. Well, in the first 5 minutes of a game,
I mean, that's a nexus right there.
It's gigantic. Absolutely gigantic.
It's huge. And look how what Deer's been doing. He's actually scoured the whole bottom left side of the map as he's backed away. He took the watchtowers. He sent some extra stalkers to check the left side of the map, make sure there's no proxy pylons. He's just focusing on scouting. And the first thing he's going to see is, has my opponent expanded? If he hasn't expanded, just focus on defense.
Immortals,
if he has expanded, then of course you want to focus on the probe production. Oh, he sees a probe there, but no nexus.
Oh. It's a little bit of a crafty probe there. I mean, it's not necessarily going to want to build a Nexus, but obviously that would imply...
I think he has to.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation because he can use that resources to get a billion more Stalkers, but it's a situation where his opponent has expanded so much sooner before him. It's one of those things where it's like, do you play just passive and try to bring yourself back into the game as it goes along?
I think it's definitely 100% the right choice. If you try to attack Deer, there's Photon Overcharge.
Yep.
And last time we saw Deer, what you could do is you could blink his Stalkers into the main to bypass that. But in this situation, Stats, half his army isn't Stalkers. It's Zealots and Sentry. Those units wouldn't help out.
Yep.
If he blinks into main, his Stalker count, even if he focuses on warping his Stalkers, wouldn't be high enough to take on the entire army of Deer by itself, if you consider the losses he took early in the game as well.
So, Workers, 34 to 31 in favor of Deer. Deer, again, being very cautious, sending out those hallucinated Phoenixes every minute or so to make sure he knows exactly what his opponent is up to. Of course, being in the lead at this position in the game, that's very important to do so you can make sure you retain that advantage and you can kind of afford to expend that Sentry energy to get that information. He's going to notice his opponent does have Blink, but Deer has Blink on the way on his own as well, has an Immortal on the way. I'm wondering when these guys are going to start making additional tech transitions. Are we going to see a Robo Bay? Are we going to see a Stargate? Where do these guys go from here?
Well, it's really up to Deer to control the pace of the game. He has 2 options from here. He knows his opponent expanding. He knows he's a little bit ahead of his opponent. He can try to go for a big attack, and you know what, I'm about 10 feet ahead, or supply, roughly depending on the warp in timings. I can use that advantage to try to kill his natural to giant attack. The other thing Deer can do is he can try to go for tech advantage. Now, given the fact that he's adding 3 more warp gates, and he's going for Blink, we're going to see him put on a giant attack soon, and Stats is actually picking off some probes here, but if these Stalkers get caught,
they're dead.
He used a second Blink as well. These Stalkers are all going to die.
Yeah.
He has killed a lot of probes, though, but with Deer going up to a mass attack of his own with those gateway additions, did he see the 3 additional gateways being added?
I'm not sure he did. I mean,
I don't think he did.
If anything, he's kind of delaying his opponent with that throwaway of the Stalkers.
Yeah, he didn't.
He saw Blink being chrono boosted, so he might have an idea. Stats he's not building any more probes. He's adding on +1, adding on an Immortal, adding on 3 Stalkers. This is going to be a pretty invested attack here from Deer, and I wonder if he's going to back up, because obviously this is delayed a little bit. At what point do you decide, all right, let's try something else?
He's going to have to see how many units Stats has. Now, Stats has gone to probe advantage so far. The big thing to look for in this battle is Deer's Blink Stalkers alone can't win the battle. There's too many Immortals and Zealots. But Deer, of course, has his own Immortals. How effectively can Stats use his force fields to keep Deer's Immortals away from the battle, while Photon Overcharge can pick away some of Deer's units?
You also have to be very careful of Blinks into your main. Deer is going to have the Stalker advantage. We have Stalkers blinking into the main base of Stats. You're going straight for the line, taking down the probes, and this is a test for Stats. Can he appropriate his units properly to deal with this threat? Again, it's going to happen in the front. 3 Immortals coming forward here from Deer. He's trying to take this right here, right now. Photon Overcharge being deployed onto that Nexus. Deer with the 91 to 76 supply advantage. So many units here trying to break his opponent.
Oh man, every single one of Deer's Immortals in this battle from the start. That's a bad sign for Stats. Stats, he lost both of his Immortals. He has no big power hitters in the mechs. Of course, he's fending off the Stalkers in the main, but his natural is taking so much fire. Photon Overcharge is trying to do what it can, but Deer just keeps pushing forward.
Probes being pulled here for Stats, desperately trying to hold on, but Deer might have too much. However, the Stalker is forced to back away. There's another Photon Overcharge available on this Mothership Core. Income tab is 37 to 31 in favor of Deer. So as time goes along, Deer is going to be happy, adding on more and more units, continuing to apply pressure, potentially blinking into his opponent's main once again, but that was definitely a very nice engagement, a very nice trade there for Deer.
Exactly. I mean, while he didn't kill the Nexus, Stats had to pull a lot of probes off the bat. And of course, he's losing more probes in his main here. Immortal can fend these Stalkers off, but all they have to do is kill a bunch of probes, and Stats can't send his whole army to deal with this, because of course then the army attacks his front. In fact, another attack in the front there.
Targeting down the Nexus, now switching his fire to the Immortal and the Stalkers. Perfect force fields, keeping those units away, and this Nexus might end up falling. This is huge. Deer taking out his opponent's natural expansion.
Oh, Stats, such a rough spot. Deer just has to back away now. In fact, he actually has the unit advantage here. He may just be able to take this game right here, right now.
Wow, Stats trying to push back, losing so many probes. He's down to 13 probes to his opponent's 39. A dire situation for our Red Protoss player. Deer on the verge of 2-0ing Stats, which is an incredibly impressive feat. 2 Immortals getting targeted down. The 3rd Immortal is gone. Only Stalkers remain, but here come the reinforcements from Deer. Stats desperately trying to hold on, but it might be too little too late.
What an absolutely amazing performance by Deer. This guy last round, he took down SCC 2-0. Now he's about to take down Stats 2-0, continue his unbeaten streak in the MLG Spring 2013 Championship.
Stats trying to make it happen with what units he has left, but Deer is just going to have too much. There's the GG. Deer with a 2-0 victory over one of the best players in the tournament. Look out for Deer to make a ridiculous run in the Spring Championships at Anaheim.
He's got to be feeling confident now, taking out one of the toughest players in the tournament. The rest of the bracket, he's going to just keep his focus. Look at that. Great show of sportsmanship there.
Good stuff. Wow. So comfortable, so clean, making all the right moves there.
You know, one of the big questions is how comfortable are these players traveling to America, playing in a big stage in the booth? But the fact is, these guys play on a big stage in the booth pretty much twice a week over in Korea in the Pro League there. They're no stranger to the big match, to the pressure, to the excitement, and Deer just showing such calm and collected micro throughout that engagement.
Deer's definitely going to be a guy to watch, and Stats as well. Stats is a guy, the lower bracket is like, all right, whatever. Like, he plays literally like 12 hours a day. So he's not going to be intimidated at all by a scary lower bracket. Of course, a lot of it is going to depend on who he faces, but do not count Stats out of this tournament. Mark my words, in Star Wars fashion, he'll be back. Or is that Terminator fashion? Close enough. Close enough. Same thing.
All right, so of course our next match here on the main stage is going to be Moonglade versus Sound. We'll be right back with that after a short break.